Hey everyone, and welcome to Spurs Beyond the Lane. We are going to be looking at the game away at Ellen Road against Leeds on Saturday. This is an early kickoff. I believe it's on Discovery Plus on Prime. You need a subscription for it if you want to watch the game. Other than that, let's get into it because there's a lot to talk about in this game against Leeds. This is our first match against them since they were previously relegated and have returned into the Premier League. Spurs currently sitting in fourth place with 11 points. Leeds are sitting in 12th with 8 points. We have scored 11 goals, conceded 4. They have scored 6, conceded 9. So it looks like a game that could contribute a lot of goals. In terms of our previous 5 games for each clubs, Spurs, we have won 3, drawn 2, and Leeds have won 1, drew 1, and lost 3. However, their last 2 games have been a win and a draw, the same as Spurs. So both teams looking to be on pretty much the same run of form. Both clubs scoring goals in those last 2 games. In fact, Leeds scored 4 in their last 2. So certainly looking like a team that is capable of putting the ball in the back of the net should the need arise. Interestingly, in the head-to-heads, 89 games played in total between both clubs. Leeds have won 30, we have won 34, and they have drawn 25. So evenly matched across the whole of the history in terms of the teams playing. Recent history kind of lies the form more in our favour. In game time, the last 3 times both clubs played each other in the Prem, the results have not went the way of Leeds United. Last time we played them was on the 20th of May 2023, and that was a 4-1 away victory for Spurs. The second time we played them before that was on the 12th of November 2022, which was a 4-3 victory for us at home, a 7-game thriller. And the time before that was the 26th of February 2022, which was a 4-0 away victory for Spurs. So those 3 games, Spurs scoring 4 goals in each, although the middle one we did concede 3 as well. So, hopefully we're not going to see a repeat of anything like that. As I said, 12 goals scored and we only conceded 4, but 3 victories in the last 3 runouts against Leeds as the opposition, home and away. So, if you're looking at previous form like that, it certainly looks stacked in our favour. And certainly when we look at some of the match facts from previous games, as well as looking at the overall performances, there's a few other things that looks like it would tilt it in our favour. So let's just jump into some of those match facts right now. So Leeds have lost their last 9 out of 11 games against Spurs. Which again, as I say, it does lean it towards our favour for Saturday. Leeds have also lost 4 goals in their last 2 home games against Spurs. But as we've seen, the last 3 games has actually been 4 in each of those. No one has scored 4 goals against Leeds 3 games in a row. We are looking like we could potentially do that. Although, given our current run of form, I wouldn't bet against it, or I wouldn't bet for it either, to be fair. Spurs have gotten 7 points from their last 3 home games out of a potential 9, which is a fantastic run of form for away games for us, especially when you consider what our form was like last season. And to be honest, I think that's more points that we've probably gotten in the last 10, 11 games at the end of last season. So again, we're doing exceptionally well under Thomas Frank compared to our league form last year. Leeds haven't won any games before 3 p.m. in a kickoff since August 2022, and I think that win at the time was against Chelsea. So, again, it's an early morning kickoff. Again, it's another match stat that looks to be in our favour. And hopefully it's not one that they manage to break their hoodoo on, at least until the next game they play somebody else. Leeds, yeah, so Leeds have not lost a home game in the last year, which is a really good stat. The last 2 games, though, have been draws, so it does look like they could potentially be edging towards that first loss. Hopefully it is against us. So, Richie, I really like this we start here. Richie, if he plays on Saturday, will be his 250th 50th Premier League appearance. His game, I think, against Bodo there was his 100th in a Spurs shirt. So it's a really nice wee target to hit for any player. But Richie is one of ours, which makes it a lot nicer. I know there'll probably be quite a few Everton fans out there that'll be quite happy to see that we stat for him as well, as he is quite liked by the Everton support. If he does make that appearance, he will be the 300th player to have done so in the Premier League, with Mikel Antonio being the last player to have achieved that stat. So a nice couple of nice wee numbers for him on that. It's nice as 250, 300. It just kind of sounds a lot better than 238 or something like that there. So 250 games if he appears being the 300th player, which is a really nice wee match pub quiz fact that you might see at some point out there in the future. So remember it well. The last and final match stat we'll put out today is Paulinho and Sean Longstaff of Leeds are both sitting top of the defensive tackles made in the Premier League at this point in the season with 19 apiece. It goes to show that Paulinho is dominating those defensive plays as he did in his last stint in the Premiership with Fulham. And Sean Longstaff is a very, very good player as well. So it's probably quite a nice wee comparison for him and the Leeds fans to see that he is up against someone who is a real defensive master. So yeah, it could be a very good battle in the middle of the park if both those players start and play at the weekend. So in terms of team news, let's have a look at who do we think is going to be starting the game on Saturday. There are a number of caveats to this lineup. Thomas Frank has shown since he's come through the door, he is the master at using different formations, but also being able to almost successfully rotate his players through each of those, providing players with rest as and when they need to. And to be fair, those defensive changes and attacking changes haven't always worked particularly well, but the substitutions coming on have turned the game around, something we really, really lacked last season. So goalkeeper will be Vicario. He is the number one. I still think that by the end of the season, Vicario could very well be our number one goalkeeper. I think from a shot stopping perspective, he's very good at getting two hands behind the ball and just plays the ball better at feet as well. Vicario sometimes tends to panic, which can put misplaced passes or into the line of the opposition, which can make it a bit sketchy at times. And we've seen that last season. However, to be fair to Vicario for last season and the season before that, it's not as if we were playing defensively particularly anytime during a game apart from that last run up to the Europa League final. But you have seen it on a number of occasions. And if you do watch my videos on a regular basis, the previews will kind of look into those, but the match analysis videos that come out after the games show you where we have failed, and we have done so in the last couple of games where Vicario has not done enough in stopping or blocking shots to be able to stop balls from hitting the back of the net. Defensive lineup. Porro has to be a start at right back. There just is no one to displace him from that. Spence and Dogie have both played in the same game together, which really misbalanced the back line. And to be honest, I thought Pedro played very well against Bodo. There were a few mishaps along the way, but I think all in all his performance was pretty decent, trying to get forward and put balls into the box. Plus the guy can hit a bloody free kick as well. So I can't see him being displaced from the right hand off defence. VDV will start the game after the goal of the weekend and during the week, and captaining the team against Bodo as well. If he's fitting well, he's always going to be in that back lineup. The only caveat I'll place here for Romero starting will be dependent on the reason for the precautionary leaving him behind that European tie on Tuesday night. Simply, it was a game on AstroTurf, which would imply that he potentially has a wee niggle at his ankle or his knee. Having a lot of knee issues myself from playing football, AstroTurf and grass are two different things to play on completely, especially when you see an AstroTurf pitch like it was on Wednesday that was soaking wet and intentionally played wet to be able to put it into Bodo's favour, and they played exceptionally well because of it. But you could see down the right hand and left hand side of that pitch that there were a lot of folds along that side, and we do like to come down tight along that line. So there was always risks there. So I imagine there's probably something there. And depending on whether it's a niggle that we keep him out of Saturday or not, I don't know. If Romero doesn't play, then Danzo will deputise, with Van de Ven being the captain for the game. Left back, I think Ndogi has done enough over the last couple of games to start on Saturday. Spence is looking a little bit tired to me. I've said it in a couple of post-match analysis videos that towards the end of games he just seems to be kind of stepping off his game a bit. He's looking a bit tired, especially when he's running and going forward and doing those overlaps. And I think the game against Leeds is a really good opportunity to give him some time on the bench to rest. But I also think he's starting to get a bit too overconfident in his play. We've seen it on a number of occasions against Bodo, where he was doing all these wee fancy kind of flick throughs with his taking balls and trying to flick them with the inside of his heel behind him and things like that. There, when in a game when you're up against it and we're actually behind, you need to just be playing the safe ball, receive it properly, pass it away, move on and look for the pass, look for the overlap, or you're coming back in to defend. And what we've seen an awful lot, and I did it more in the analysis video, is that he was not doing that, and it was putting him at risk of conceding more goals. So I think for that alone, he needs to be on the bench for Saturday. Midfield, again, it's another lineup that could be interchanged drastically, and there are so many variations of who can play there. But I think based on what we saw on Tuesday night, Paulinho has to start. Saturday needs to be a big win for Spurs, given how everything has went of late. So Paulinho is the only guy that seems to offer the stability and the ability to just keep the younger players calm around him. And he has dug us out of a hole over the last few games. And certainly against Bodo was absolutely critical to us creating and retaining shape in the middle of the park. So for that alone, he has to be starting. Now, it's who plays alongside him is the big question. Bentancur was missing in action on Tuesday night, which also led to Sarr not really playing and functioning in the role that he was supposed to. At the end of the day, our young players, and any young player in a game, relies on the older, more experienced players to be able to take them through games, especially when you're up against it like we were on Tuesday night. We had no shape in the middle at all, and we were constantly getting overrun. That is reliant on an experienced player like Bentancur, a highly experienced international player, a highly experienced Premier League player, and a man of 28 years of age who should be able to keep that middle going, but he didn't. So I really think that slot in beside him will depend on whether or not Thomas Frank thinks Bentancur needs a rest. But I suspect what we might see in there for the game against Leeds is either Sarr or Gray in that role with Bentancur on the bench. The number 10 role, I would love to say that I'd like to see Xavi starting in there. But for reasons I'll go into when we look at the forward line, I really think Bentancur, not Bentancur, apologies, Bergval will start in that number 10 role. I think with Paulinho in there, it offers stability in and around that midfield, which then allows Bergval the ability to be able to drive forward and to create chances for the attacking lineup. So I think that's why we'll see Bergval there instead of Xavi. However, I could very well be wrong, and we might see Xavi start there. As I said, Thomas Frank has this ability to do it and do the things that you least expect. We move on to that forward line. Kudus is an absolute must on the right. It showed it in the game against Bodo. Johnson on the right just did nothing. I've said it before, I'll say it again. In games where the run of play goes against us, Johnson really struggles to do something. And I think the pressure of having to deliver in those situations really does have an effect on him. But bearing in mind, this is not a dig at Johnson. He is a very young player and he is gaining experience all the time with the Welsh national team as well as playing for Spurs. He just needs the time to learn, to adjust, and to be able to enhance his skill sets. And one of them is to be more situationally aware when he's on the ball, but actually to practice running at players in training and trying to get past them, because it's the one thing we've really, really missed. And at the end of the day, if you're playing on the wing, you're either there to take it to the byline and put the ball in and let the guy who's playing as centre forward to put that ball in the back of the net, or if there's an opportunity to do so and you don't have the support to be able to cut in and drive at the box yourself. Two of those things that he really, really needs to focus on. On the left-hand side, the same thing can be said again for Odegaard and Tell, as well as Johnson, because he does have an opportunity for that left hand side. None of which of those three players have had the ability to nail that slot down. And let's face it, if we're being honest, the three of them have had ample opportunity up to now to make that left wing role their own. And I think for that reason alone, we will see Savvy start in on that left hand side. Although when he came onto the pitch, into that number 10 role, it changed how we played the game going forward as well. And again, as I say, with that stability of Paulinho being in behind, it gives him the ability to do the damage that we have seen him do for Leipzig as well as other teams prior. So I think for that reason and that reason alone, we'll see him on the left, and we'll continue to see him on the left until one of the other guys can put in a performance that takes that slot and allowing Safi to be released to play that role in the number 10 slot and provide the creativity we've seen against Brighton, we've seen against Bodo, and create those opportunities to drive forward and do something. Centre forward role is going to be Richie all day long. He is the established number 9 at the club, especially with Solanke still out injured. And I don't see, although there is probably a small chance that Tell might start the game against Leeds, if only to give Richie a chance to rest on the bench with the ability to swap him out. One thing I wouldn't mind seeing, and it really does depend on Solanke and Moane coming back from injury, would maybe, if the left hand side is still a problem, put Richie out there. He's played it so many times and he is like a dog with a bone. He will chase everyone down that left hand side. He will get the ball and he will recycle it back in. So if Moane's back, play him down the middle, put Richie on the left hand side and just let it go. Or put Moane on the left with Richie down, and we'll start to see chances being created down that side. The one thing I would say though, and we've already listed out our lineup pretty much there. I think the one thing we really need to do is, if none of those three young players have nailed down that left hand side, we need to go out and buy a left winger, an established player. And in my mind, the only one I want to see in that role right now would be to go and drop 70 million on some menu. And we might have to pay more than that to get him. But the man is on fire right now. We should have burst the bank and gotten him over the summer, especially after Sonny leaving and going to LAFC. The left wing was always going to be a problem. But I get it. Thomas Frank has looked at the squad and went, we've got three young, capable players here. Any one of those three should be able to nail down that spot, but they haven't. So, and I know there will be sections of the sport who will hear that and look at it and go, yeah, well, hold on a wee second here. But if we buy someone and we're blocking the progress of the young players, to be honest, no, we're not. The three young players have had an opportunity to do it. They are not mature enough in their gameplay to be able to nail that down for a starting slot in the Premier League. If you want to look at Mikey Moore, look at what he's doing at Rangers right now. There are mitigating circumstances there. It is a team that is not being managed particularly well and is not played particularly well, but he's only just turned 18. He said it himself. He's not ready for it. He needs to go out on loan. He needs to get that first team experience and actually do something. What I think we might see is in January, him coming back and potentially either going back out on loan somewhere else, unless the Rangers team sorts itself out, or potentially being held to compete for that left hand slot. But I don't see that being an option. And I think he is at least another 2, maybe 3 years away from actually nailing down a starting slot on that left hand side. So, in essence, no, we're not going to be blocking anyone's path. Those three players we've already mentioned have had the chances and the opportunities to make it their own, and they have failed to do so. In terms of some of the injury news, Solanke has had an operation on his ankle. He's not expected to be seen until after the international break. However, I think some of the news he's been put out recently is that he might actually be back a little bit before then. But I will say this, I would rather him rest fully and come back fighting fit to compete for that centre forward slot, because he's no use to this if he comes back early, gets injured, and he's out for even longer. Moane is going to be another couple of weeks, I think. And then we're looking at the usual suspects. Kulusevski potentially back before the end of the year. Katai as well as Dragusin are both very similar, although they may be back within the next month. And then obviously we've got the long-termer Madison, who, if recovery continues to go the way it is, we might see him back before the end of this season, but we really are missing that Madison and Kulusevski creativity, either coming through the middle or coming in from the wings as well. And if Kulusevski comes back before the January transfer window and actually starts getting some game time, we may not actually require to go out and buy someone on the left wing, because we could play Kulusevski there, or could switch to the left with Kulusevski playing on the right, which would allow and free up Savi to take that number 10 slot. So there are options and availability for games going forward. It really just depends on what and who comes back and how fit they are to be able to start competing for those slots. So there is positivity on the horizon. We just need to be patient and wait for it. But the game against Leeds is shaping up to be a very good one. As I said, the last couple of games for Spurs have not been great. We need to start creating goals from open play. Everything seems to be coming from set pieces, and a goal's a goal. I'll take it whatever way it comes. But if you can add open play goals to all the set piece threats, then we end up having a team that looks exceptionally dangerous, exactly the way we looked at the start of the season. But we seem to have went off the boil a little bit. But Saturday needs to be a win, and it needs to be a big win. I think we could potentially be looking at a 3-0 or a 3-1, but it all depends on how we start that game. Because if we start the same way we did against Bodo and against Wolves, Leeds have the ability in them right now, and they're on a run of goal scoring form, 4 goals in the last 2 games. They will punish us. So we need the win. We need it to be a big one. We need open play goals. So, I'm looking forward to that game on Saturday. Hopefully you are too. If you are at the stadium, please enjoy yourself. If you're making that trip to Ellen Road, I hope you have a fantastic journey there and home, as well as a good result on Saturday. And I will see you in the match analysis video after the game. Come on, you Spurs.